is up today? Dallas Mavericks fans, MFFLs everywhere. Your Dallas Mavericks defeated the third seed Minnesota Timberwolves on the road, game one of the Western Conference Finals with the final score, Dallas Mavericks 108, the Minnesota Timberwolves 105. Before we get going, go ahead and comment, subscribe, share down below. How did you guys feel about the game one performance from the Dallas Mavericks? What were some of the positives, the pros that you saw the Dallas Mavericks employ in game one against the Minnesota Timberwolves? And also, go ahead and hit that like button. I want you guys to get those likes up. That continues to help pass the information around, this content around, these videos, getting out to different like-minded people such as yourself. So I appreciate you guys for all the support. Let's talk about game one in the Western Conference Finals. As everybody knows by now, game 7 of the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Denver Nuggets. You heard in the post game, Anthony Edwards, and I'm going to say kind of the same way you heard Kyrie Irving talk about it in the post game a little bit. He's talking to Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, all those guys sitting around that panel. You heard Kyrie Irving say, when he heard Anthony Edwards pretty much say, I'm covering Kyrie Irving in game one of the West Conference Finals, he took it as a nod of respect. And I can see the same way because, again, I don't think Anthony Edwards meant it in any way to be disrespectful, but he's kind of letting it be known. Hey, that's the guy I'm looking to defend, and that's the guy I think I can slow down a little bit because you got to love that confidence from a guy like Anthony Edwards. But let's be clear. Kyrie Irving is one of those special players. I mean, I'm talking about in NBA history. This is a guy that should be in NBA top 75 level type player. So we're looking at what Kyrie Irving was able to do from the beginning of this game. It was kind of a fill you out situation. That's what we've gotten used to Kyrie Irving, especially in this postseason. And what we've seen so much in the regular season itself, it always seemed Luka Doncic is the one that kind of gets the ball rolling in the first half, gets some other role players involved, and kind of, I guess, one takes a little bit more of their responsibility when it comes to scoring and playmaking himself. And Kyrie Irving usually does the fourth quarter thing, the third quarter to the fourth quarter. The second half is usually Kyrie Irving's show. But in this game, game one, the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Minnesota Timberwolves on the road, the Mavericks are going to have to come in there and stay engaged. And what did Kyrie Irving do? He came out there aggressive. I believe he had, 24 points in the first half. Luka Doncic was kind of playing that role of filling guys out, playmaking a little bit. Kyrie Irving came out, and he had Anthony Edwards running around, exhausted by the fourth quarter, because at the end of the day, we could talk about two-way players. We could talk about how many guys love to be the two-way players. You want to score offensively, and also you want to be I just want to say a very viable defender on the other side of the court. But what we saw, Anthony Edwards, so much energy he had to exert because Kyrie Irving, again, is a special player. You've heard different players throughout the entire league, but also when you're talking about guys like Dame Lillard, saying Kyrie Irving is probably the most skilled player he's ever seen, period. And we talk about some of these NBA experts, the analysts, saying the same thing. Kyrie Irving is one of those guys you do not want to wake up. You would have been kind of better off in the mindset of just letting Kyrie Irving feel his way out through this first game, throughout this series, and see where that ends up, where you end up as a team. And speaking of the Minnesota Timberwolves, but when you wake a guy like that up, you just love to see that he would, I guess, I don't want to say in the mindset of as Kyrie Irving is scared of the moment, because we know Kyrie Irving has not seen a shot, has not seen a play that he doesn't think he can make. But maybe sometimes you're going to let a guy like Luka Doncic fill out the rest of the team, get so many guys involved, whether it's a Derrick Jones Jr., a PJ Washington, a Daniel Gafford, you're talking about a Derek Lively, and maybe sometimes a Tim Hardaway Jr., Jaden Hardy, see what some of these other guys can do off the bench. In 40 minutes, Kyrie Irving, 30 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. You cannot say much more. Again, this is just one of the most skilled players in the NBA, period. We're talking about NBA history, in my personal opinion. And then when you're talking about playing off of that and just the leadership that he shows and the younger guys that have always seemed to follow him since, again, we made this transition to being a more defensive-minded team and just being more secure and tight-knit on what, I guess, the chemistry. The young guys seem to follow Kyrie Irving just very well, and that includes Luka Doncic. And we're talking about Luka Doncic in 41 minutes, I believe, 33 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. This was a beautiful showing by Luka Doncic, and I'm going to say led and spearheaded by his 15 points in the fourth quarter. Again, they kind of took off the little switch of their roles. Kyrie Irving is usually the guy to kind of, get the ball rolling for himself in the second half of games. Luka Doncic usually does that in the first half. But today, Kyrie Irving, like I said, came out very aggressive, willing, I guess, just having a point to prove and to show I'm one of those guys. Let's be very clear. Luka Doncic, again, 15 points in the fourth quarter. This is a very close game because you had guys from the other team. I believe the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is not a three-point shooting team. They took about 49 of 53s, I believe, yesterday, knocking down 18. The Dallas Mavericks took about 25 or 26 and knocked down only 6. The Mavericks are a much better three-point shooting team than this consistently, but yesterday yesterday, the fact that the Dallas Mavericks were able to pull out a 3-point win on the road in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals is big, because we were not even pretty much doing the things that we have become very accustomed to. So if we can knock down a couple more shots, if some of those Jaden McDaniels shots that we saw throughout the entire night, I believe Jaden McDaniels ends up with 24 points, a guy that was doing everything, knocking down 3-point shots, getting out in transition, helping out loose balls. Jaden McDaniels was doing everything. But I'm going to say, if the Dallas Mavericks are going to have a game plan, I would not have to feel myself, I'm going to say as a Dallas Mavericks fan right now, being concerned with Jaden McDaniels continuing to do this for a remainder of a series. I just don't see that happening. Let's be clear. This is an NBA player, so he has the capabilities. Let's be very solid about that, because this is a guy that can score the ball when given an opportunity as well. But the 3-point shooting that they were having, that they were, I guess you want to say they were displaying yesterday, the Minnesota Timberwolves, that's not something I think you can completely bank on if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. Now, let's be clear. You're going to have belief in your team, as the Dallas Mavericks fan base the same way. But it was just a good thing to see the Dallas Mavericks be able to pull that out, because you're talking about a guy, Anthony Edwards, obviously the 22-year-old. You're expecting him to do so much. I believe he ends the game with about 19 points, but so much, like I said, you saw the wear and tear that was displayed by him. Obviously, it was a long, drawn out series versus the Denver Nuggets, and having to come back from a 15-point deficit, I believe, that team 17-point deficit, I believe, in the Nuggets to the Nuggets in Game 7, having to expend all that energy and hold them off in Game 7 on the road, and then having to come a tough Dallas Mavericks opponent in Game 1. You saw the wear and tear again, just the fatigue that Anthony Edwards was displaying. 19 points. I believe Karl-Anthony Towns, we're talking about another guy. One thing you saw was Anthony Edwards. The Dallas Mavericks, I'm going to say, it seemed as if the scheme somewhat may have been to allow guys like Anthony Edwards and a Jaden McDaniels, and then having some of these other guys coming off the bench, Kyle Anderson, Naz Reid, Karl-Anthony Towns found himself in that same mix, having to take 3-point shots, because what we're trying to do was lock down the interior and force those shots to have to go up. Karl-Anthony Towns, I believe, ends up taking 9 3-point shots. He hits a big late one, I believe, gives them the quick lead, but it did not last long. This was just a great showing by the Dallas Mavericks defensively, and I'm going to give lots of credit. And again, we can talk about some situations. I've seen up and down opinions on the way Daniel Gafford has played. I don't think it's been as bad as some people are saying, because at the end of the day, he's still giving that interior presence. You have to think twice when you see a guy like that coming in. But then when you're watching Derek Lively, who played 27 minutes last night, I believe, 9 points, 11 rebounds, 2 big blocks. Daniel Gafford also had a block in there too. Those big men, the combination of what that was able to bring, it paid off in the end, because now, again, when you're shrinking down the court and you're not able to get those easy drives, which we know Anthony Edwards loves to employ. He loves to attack the basket and I just want to say, just streamline straight down to the rim as much as he can. And even that, a lot of times it's going to open up mid-range jumpers and just easy buckets at the rim. When you have 2 big men in a Daniel Gafford and a Derek Lively that can show that force that pressure, and again, allow guys to be able to have to take these wide open 3-point shots, or these open 3-point shots that the Dallas Mavericks are playing. I guess you want to say the Minnesota Timberwolves are probably playing into the Dallas Mavericks' hands a little bit with that. I guess you want to say with that concept. In 41 minutes, Anthony Edwards, 19 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 6 of 16 on field goals, 5 of 12 from the 3-point land. And obviously, I'm not going to say it's not terrible shooting from 3-point land, but again, that's not the Minnesota Timberwolves MO. They're not looking to force up so many 3-point shots. So they kind of play into the Mavericks' hands a little bit again. And talking about, I believe, 35 minutes, Karl-Anthony Towns, 16 points, 7 rebounds. This was not a game Karl-Anthony Towns was able to take over offensively either. But to me, the biggest thing is a guy like Rudy Gobert. And I believe in 38 minutes, 12 points, 7 rebounds, only 7 rebounds. This is a guy that's kind of his presence. He's going to rebound. He's going to, I guess you want to say, be a rim protector for you, obviously. A 4-time Defensive Player of the Year now, Rudy Gobert. We can go back to the history of the Utah Jazz, the Dallas Mavericks have had. When you're talking about I guess you want to say the situations we've seen Luka Doncic be able to put a Rudy Gobert in. The Minnesota Timberwolves loves to play this drop coverage, pretty much allowing Rudy Gobert to kind of play that free safety role. He kind of roams around the paint. If a guy comes into the interior, now he can attack that basket. But one thing we saw, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving especially, but Luka Doncic also especially, the playmaking ability that they do have. When you see Luka Doncic now, Rudy Gobert in drop coverage and playing that type of defense, if Rudy Gobert comes to, I guess you want to say, try to maybe take away that shot, the floater, or what can be an easy look at the basket for Luka Doncic, now he can let that lob go, an easy lob to a guy like a Daniel Gafford, a Derek Lively. PJ Washington, a Derrick Jones Jr. That opens up so much for the Mavericks offense overall, and now you have to pick your poison. If a guy like Rudy Gobert wants to drop back a little bit, now you're going to see Luka Doncic be able to attack the basket and take some of those easy looks, as many as he can, if they're going to continue to play aggressive. So the Dallas Mavericks have found themselves in a great space, and we're talking about a team, I believe the Dallas Mavericks out-rebounded the Minnesota Timberwolves 48-41 or 48-41 of those two. It's just great to see because, again, you do have so many young bodies and so many different looks that you can throw at a defense like that. So the Dallas Mavericks took very much so, I would have to say very much so, took advantage of what a Rudy Gobert mismatch could be, and hopefully we can continue some of that going into game 2. In 35 minutes, respectfully, Derrick Jones Jr. had about 8 points, 4 rebounds, just played great defense. Between the Karl Anthony Towns, you're talking about the Anthony Edwards, you saw a little mix-up match depending on what the coverages were. But again, also in 35 minutes, like I said, one thing you cannot complain about Derrick Jones Jr. is just playing with some intensity. He got to the basket a couple times and did not get foul calls I felt like he should have gotten, but he played hard the entire time, and it's just great ball, especially time when the playoffs. Your role players have got to do their jobs, and Derrick Jones Jr. did not let us down with that in game 1. Also, PJ Washington in 41 minutes, I believe he had 13 points, was about 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. This is a guy, when you're talking about PJ Washington, the shots were not falling early and often, but I believe he ends up being, 2 of 8 from the three-point line. The shots were not falling, like I said, but what he continued to do was let it fly. End up hitting a big one later on in the fourth quarter, a game that the Dallas Mavericks are going to have to be able to hang their hats on because it's showing young guys like a PJ Washington. You don't have to always be putting the ball in the bucket to stay aggressive. You don't have to always be putting the ball in the bucket and again to be making major impacts on games. And he continued to stick with it, continued to find his spots here and there, and it paid off in the end. But like I said, also PJ Washington with 2 blocks. This was just a great showing, and I want to see the Dallas Mavericks continue to keep some of this momentum rolling in game 2. I believe it will be on Friday, so we'll see how exactly. But if you're talking about some of the other guys coming off the bench, it wasn't much of a role player game, I guess you want to say, for the Dallas Mavericks in the sense of bench players. Tim Hardaway Jr., I believe, in 10 minutes, didn't take any shots, which is surprising. He ends up with 4 rebounds. Look at a guy like Dante Exum, got a couple minutes in the game. Jaden Hardy with a few minutes off the bench. And again, one thing I'm going to give Jaden Hardy lots of credit for, obviously, this is a guy, when coming in, he has shown the ability to be a much better playmaker than lots of people kind of gave him credit for earlier on the last couple seasons. But one thing you will see, and I've said multiple times, I feel like you don't want to, of course, you don't want to jump off the momentum, the chemistry that the team has right now. But I can see a guy like Jaden Hardy taking over that Tim Hardaway Jr. role. I'm talking about where the 6th man off the bench, we just need you to get buckets and create and be a great playmaker. And that's going to allow guys like a Dante Exum. That's going to allow, if he's able to return, we'll see how this goes in the offseason. But we're sticking on right now. But I'm just talking about just having the development of a guy like Jaden Hardy. That's going to be major for the Dallas Mavericks in the present and also in the future, in my personal opinion. And I will give Josh Green, who played 13 minutes, a little bit of credit. Of course, he had some boneheaded plays. You saw Luka Doncic with a beautiful down court bounce pass, I will say. Josh Green did not convert the dunk. It would have been a beautiful assist highlight. But one thing I will give him credit for, and then a nasty turnover right after that. And then obviously we can talk about later on in the game, the fourth quarter, the closing seconds, inadvertently fouls Mike Conley, allowing him to get 3 free throws, which he makes the first one, misses the second one, which pretty much put their I guess you want to say, their chance to win the game, the Minnesota Timberwolves' chances to win the game, in complete disarray. So now forcing yourself to have to miss that third one, they were not able to get the ball. Dallas Mavericks pull off a 108-105 win. But Josh Green, I will give him credit for always playing hard. Sometimes it's going to get you in trouble. Sometimes it's going to get you, I guess you want, sometimes it's going to work out for you. But yesterday, there were enough good momentum energy plays that Josh Green did give, and I will give credit for that. So, but we have to clean up some of those minor mistakes, the mental errors, because we know in the postseason, games sometimes can come down to 1 or 2 possessions of the ball, and you cannot let a bad mistake late in the game be your, I guess you want to say, ruin what the team has done throughout the entire 3 or 4 quarters. So, but the Dallas Mavericks did pull off a 108-105 win against the Minnesota Timberwolves at home on the road, Game 1, Western Conference Finals. Game 2 will be on Friday, so tomorrow, same 7:30 p.m. Central Time. The Dallas Mavericks need to come in here with that same aggressiveness. I want to see this team come in here and snatch Game 2 as well. We can talk about, yeah, you already took home court. You kind of saved it for yourself. Now, it can, at the worst, it can be 1-1. No, I want the Mavericks to have the mindset. We want this thing 2-0. heading back home, because the sooner you can wrap series up, or the sooner you can just put pressure on some of these teams, talking about a Minnesota Timberwolves type team who has lots of talent. Let's be clear. They have a guy like Naz Reid, who I give lots of credit for. He worries me, just the versatility. You can see Naz Reid, he's not even the best, we're talking about the best player in the league, but one thing he's going to be able to do, he did just win Sixth Man of the Year. When he comes in, he makes game-changing plays. There will be game-changing stretches, and that he did the same thing last night. So Naz Reid, the Dallas Mavericks are going to have to come in and focus on some of these other guys, but you do have an opportunity to take a 2-0 series lead heading back to Dallas, and I hope this team comes in locked, loaded, and ready to give, I guess you want to say, to accomplish that goal. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Once again, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. Get those likes up so we can continue to get this content passed around to like-minded fans such as yourself. Also, comment down below. I want you guys to start boosting those comments up. I want to know what you guys think about the Dallas Mavericks going forward into Game 2. Who are you most excited about from Game 1 performance? And also, who do you feel can be the X factor in Game 2? I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go Mavs as always. And also, as always, enjoy the rest of your day.